There are thousands of watches on the market. Maybe 5% of them are worth wearing every single day without a second thought. Today, I am giving you the 10 that make the cut, the ones that serious collectors, seasoned professionals, and the men who actually know watches wear every single day, regardless of what else is in their collection. Every budget, every context, every situation a man actually faces. After this video, you will never buy another wrong watch again. Tudor Black Bay 58, around $3,500. Tudor introduced the Black Bay 58 in 2018 and immediately resolved a problem the watch community had been debating for years: how to build a vintage-inspired dive watch with manufacture movement quality at a price that does not require the buyer to make a serious financial sacrifice. The answer was 39 millimeters, 11.9 millimeters of thickness, and a manufacture movement delivering a 65-hour power reserve and Speedmaster chronometer certification, the same certification framework that Omega applies to its flagship references. The Black Bay 58 is not a cheaper Rolex. It is a watch with its own in-house movement, its own design identity rooted in Tudor's 1958 diving heritage, and a bracelet execution that the watch community ranks among the best integrated steel bracelets in its price category. The lug-to-lug measurement of 47.8 millimeters allows it to sit correctly on a wider range of wrists than most dive watches of comparable diameter, which is why it consistently appears in daily wear recommendations across every major watch forum, regardless of wrist size. I have seen the Black Bay 58 on the wrist of a surgeon, a hedge fund manager, and a carpenter. Each one of them had arrived at the same watch by a completely different path, and each one wore it every day. That is the most honest endorsement a watch can receive. Hans Wilsdorf founded Tudor in 1926 to offer Rolex standard engineering at a more accessible price. Nearly a century later, the Black Bay 58 is the clearest expression of that founding brief. The man who wears the Tudor Black Bay 58 has moved past the conversation about what Tudor's relationship to Rolex means and arrived at the more important question: is the watch excellent on its own terms? The answer is yes, and his wrist communicates that he did the work to reach that conclusion himself. Seiko Presage Sharp-Edged SPB 169, around $1,000. Seiko launched the Presage Sharp-Edged series in September 2020, and it represents something specific in the watch community: the moment a Japanese manufacturer stopped apologizing for not being Swiss and started doing things no Swiss brand could do at the price. The SPB 169, with its Tokiwa green dial, is the most distinctive reference in the lineup. The dial texture is inspired by the hemp leaf motif of Japan's Heian period, a pattern dating to the 8th century, rendered through a finishing process that catches light differently at every angle and produces a depth that photography consistently fails to capture. There is no Swiss watch at this price point with this level of dialcraft. The movement is the Seiko 6R35, an in-house automatic caliber with a 70-hour power reserve, a hacking seconds function, and an accuracy specification that collectors who own watches at 5 and 10 times the price consistently rate as better than the movement's cost suggests. Sapphire crystal front and back, 100 meters of water resistance with a screw-down crown, integrated bracelet with a trifold clasp. The combination of material specification, in-house movement, and dial quality at $1,000 represents a value proposition that no competitor in the Swiss industry has been willing or able to match at this price. A colleague of mine spent 3 months researching his first serious watch. He came to me expecting to spend $4,000 and left the conversation with a recommendation for this one. He has been wearing it every day for 2 years and has never once reconsidered. The man who wears the Seiko Presage Sharp-Edged has identified something that most buyers miss entirely: originality and craft in daily wear are worth more than borrowed prestige. He has done enough research to find the watch the Swiss industry would rather you did not know about, and that research communicates everything about him before anyone reads the dial. Rolex Datejust 41, around $10,000. Rolex introduced the Datejust in 1945 as the first self-winding wristwatch to display the date through a window in the dial, a complication so practical and so well executed that it defined what a daily wear watch meant for the following 8 decades. The Datejust 41, reference 126334, is the current production expression of that history. 41 millimeters of oyster case in Rolex's proprietary 904L stainless steel, a caliber 3235 movement with a 70-hour power reserve and superlative chronometer certification, and the Jubilee bracelet in its most refined current iteration. The Caliber 3235 is Rolex's most significant mechanical development of the last decade, featuring a redesigned escapement, an improved balance spring, and Paraflex shock absorption that the watch community consistently rates as the most reliable automatic movement in production at any price. The Datejust 41 succeeds as a daily wear watch because Rolex did not treat it as a fragile dress piece. The oyster case, sapphire crystal, Cyclops date magnifier, and 100 meters of water resistance mean that rain, travel, and routine handling are part of normal ownership rather than sources of anxiety. It has been the correct choice for 80 years. That is not an accident. The case trades closer to 39.5 millimeters on the wrist than the 41 millimeter specification suggests, which accounts for its consistent appearance in recommendations across a wide range of wrist sizes. The watch transitions from a suit to weekend wear to travel without requiring a change or a second thought. And that absence of thought is precisely the point. The man who wears the Rolex Datejust 41 has identified something important. The most sophisticated daily watch is not the most technically complex one. It is the one that is never wrong for the situation, never anxious about the environment, and never requires the man wearing it to reconsider. He made that decision once, and it is not needed revisiting. All the watches in this video are tagged with the best current prices I could find. If any of these are on your radar, the link is right there. Omega Speedmaster, around $6,000. The Omega Speedmaster was introduced in 1957 as a racing chronograph. Its transition to the most documented piece of watchmaking history began in 1965, when NASA tested every chronograph available on the market and selected the Speedmaster Professional as the official watch of its astronaut program. Buzz Aldrin wore it on the lunar surface during the Apollo 11 mission in July 1969. The watch has been on every crewed NASA mission since. The current reference, 310.30.42.50.01.001, is powered by the Caliber 3861, a manually wound movement with a coaxial escapement, a silicon balance spring, and Metis Master chronometer certification. The Hesalite crystal version is the historically accurate option, the same material used on the watch that went to the moon, while the sapphire variant adds exhibition caseback access to the movement and practical scratch resistance for daily wear. The watch community's consensus on the Speedmaster Professional is that its place on any daily wear list requires almost no argument. It is the most historically significant chronograph ever produced for daily wear, available at retail without a wait list, from an authorized Omega dealer the same day you decide to buy one. I once asked a longtime Speedmaster owner what made him choose it over everything else he had worn. He thought about it for a moment and said, "Because when I look down at my wrist, I remember that it went to the moon and came back, and that puts whatever I am dealing with into perspective." That is not a selling point. That is what it feels like to wear the right watch. The man who wears the Omega Speedmaster Professional has chosen the most historically credentialed daily watch on this list. What he communicates is not aspiration. It is the confidence of someone who has identified exactly what they are wearing and why, and found the weight of that history worth carrying every single day. Jaeger-LeCoultre Reverso Tribute, around $8,000 to $10,000. The Reverso was created in 1931 by Jaeger-LeCoultre with a brief that the watch community regards as one of the most elegant problem-solving exercises in watchmaking history. British officers stationed in India were breaking their watch crystals during polo matches, and they needed a dial they could protect during play. The solution was a case that swivels on a carriage, hiding the dial against the wrist when the wearer chooses, a polo solution that became the definitive Art Deco watch. The Reverso Tribute Collection returns to dimensions that closely match the 1931 original, compact, rectangular, with proportions that made the design a landmark of 20th century applied design. The movement inside is the manually wound Caliber 822, with a 42-hour power reserve wound by hand each morning as part of a ritual of ownership that the watch community consistently identifies as one of the specific pleasures of wearing this reference daily. Manual winding in the context of daily wear is not a limitation. It is a considered relationship between the man and the object. The blank reverse side of the case can carry an engraving, a family crest, a date, or simply remain clean and private, a surface that belongs entirely to the wearer without being visible to anyone else. The first time I flipped the case of a Reverso and saw that blank steel reverse, I understood immediately why this watch has been in continuous production for nearly a century. It is the only watch on this list that has a side that belongs only to you. Jaeger-LeCoultre manufactures more in-house calibers than almost any other watchmaker in the world, and the Reverso Tribute is the house's most direct expression of its design philosophy, that the most sophisticated watch solves a real problem with a solution that becomes more beautiful the more closely it is examined. The man who wears the Jaeger-LeCoultre Reverso Tribute daily has understood that elegance and practicality are not in opposition, and he is wearing that understanding on his wrist every day as a quiet statement that function and beauty have always belonged together.